Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. This is going to be an interesting session. We got some very exciting personalities here. But first, the topic is, it's not about revolution, it's about digital transformation, because this is an important part of the session, because today we are going through a major change in the world. We have discussed earlier this morning. Digital transformation is an agenda of every country that sees this as a new engine of growth. If you look, from Penang, 50 years ago, Penang went through what we call industrial transformation, resulting in the free trade zone and the emergence of electronic clusters that make Malaysia one of the export-driven economy. So fast forward 50 years now, most of the country are going even in Malaysia, moving through a digital transformation. So we're going to talk about regulatory issues, about the role of government, and about talent management, issues that impact the future of the global economy, which is going through a digital transformation, and also some of the challenges faced by startup field in areas of fintech or in social enterprise. So I will first introduce the speakers that we have here. Of course, Madiha Fuad is a social entrepreneur. She has started this quite a while. And social enterprise is not an easy business to get in. You need to be able to manage the business model and also get a social outcome at the same time. And so she has this currently served over 30,000 members, has prevented 800 suicide or something like that, ideation. In recognition of PlusVibes' social impact, it has won awards, startup competition, and grants. She's the only Malaysian selected to be part of the Young Founders Program in 2022, an international fellowship based in Germany. And we have the second the speaker also, Ashfaq. Ashfaq is Zaman, strategic communication. Ashfaq is strategic communication for Aspire to Innovate. It's in a body of the government in Bangladesh, which look at the ICT part under the ICT ministry to transform the country, with model being replicated in many other countries. He's director of Asia Pacific for international business consulting and expert in strategic leadership, design thinking, which is part of the whole building ecosystem for digital economy. And we also have Michelle. Michelle is that has been working in Singapore and look at one of the companies involved in talent management, run a lot of consulting work before, and she from Tata Consulting Services, and was responsible in establishing regional ASEAN hub for global reporting. Extensive experience in collaborating with stakeholders, and is co-chair of Contribute on topic of ESG too. And finally, we have Tirandong from Thailand, Sri Hong, the chairman of Board of Commission, Digital Economy Promotion Agency Thailand. He's chairman of Digital Economy Promotion Board Thailand. He served as a board members of CEO and executive team and board of directors of a number of public and private company. And I think both we will look at the role of government in driving economic transformation and digital transformation. First, I would like to invite Maria to present her social enterprise. And are you using any slide or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dato'. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Medea Fuad. I'm the founder and CEO of PlusVibes. I've just got 2 or 3 slides for you, where I'm going to share with you how PlusVibes, a mental health app, has actually allowed and prevented different types of measures in terms of mental health solutions. So I'd like to get up the presentation shortly. Let's see if we have it. Yes. So, social entrepreneurship. I think that's a very important topic in this day and age, especially because we are looking at, okay, thank you. Especially because we're looking at young entrepreneurs. Young entrepreneurs focusing on wanting to do better for the community, wanting to focus on purpose. And that's where you get people focusing on the ESG goals. Similarly, Plus Vibes focuses on mental health. And what we've done is we've developed a mobile application. This mobile application is available globally, and it currently supports MNCs across Asia. Some of our clients are in the banking industry, oil and gas, telco industry, and what we do is we provide this on-demand mental health support for the public and also for employees. We have 30,000 members, and alhamdulillah, we have prevented 800 suicide ideations. And this is something we would like to scale. So we're thinking, okay, we've identified an issue. Because of COVID, what happens? People, their mental stress escalated. People could not reach out for help. It was expensive to look for a psychologist, psychiatrist, of which 1 hour is around 100 and can go up to 400 ringgit per session for 1 hour. So to what extent is mental health care accessible or affordable? And that's where what we do is we partner with universities as well to identify and collect data. Because in this topic of digital transformation, it's all about data. It's accessibility, it's innovative, and it's about data. Having this data to provide that solution. So I'd like to share with you, this is how we collect the data. So you're wondering, how do we really identify? Did we really prevent the suicide ideation? When they enter the app, what happens is they'll state their feelings, causes of stress, for example. Is it overthinking? Is it workplace? Is it family? And then do you have self-harm or suicide ideations? And then when you exit that chat with the counselor, they'll state, did this conversation help me, make me feel better? And so far, alhamdulillah, we have had thousands of positive reviews. And then we have our 200 vibers, those with psychology, counseling, hypnotherapy background. The thing is, we always think that there's lack of psychologists, but actually no, it's just untapped resources. Every semester, there are psychology graduates, but they are then graduating and going into HR, admin, when actually the people do need these kinds of services, but there's no platform for them. So that's where we actually have data on our Penang members. Now, out of those 30,000 members, 2,000 of them are from Penang. And what we've identified is 930 of them need comfort, and that's in 1 month. And as you can see here, suicide tendencies, 200 in 1 month. And we're looking at, wait a minute, in Penang, in the past 2 years, there were over 200 completed suicide cases. So this is where we actually think about how digital transformation, how innovative ideas, how social entrepreneurs can actually provide a solution for the community. And that's where we get, okay, the next stage is how do we scale? So far, we are supported by Teraju and Meranti. We won the startup grant there, and what we're doing now is scaling. So our pilot test is complete, and now what we want to do is really see how this mental health mobile app can transform and really support not only Malaysia, but globally as well. So that's where we are in this this fellowship program in Germany, where we are also experimenting whether we can scale into Europe. Now, so the focus here is actually social entrepreneurship and digital transformation. And that's a little bit about Plus Vibes.
Thank you. I just want to ask you some question about what drive you to do this, and because this is very tough. I've been working with many social entrepreneurs. How do you balance the business model and the outcome? Who's going to fund this?
Yep. Very good question. Now, I think with all social entrepreneurs, it comes down to the purpose. It comes down to deep down, you want to create the solution because you really felt the problem. And that is exactly what I faced. I was actually a medical patient who went through my own struggles. physical illnesses, which then led to mental stress, mental depression. And instead of thinking like, okay, perhaps I need to scale, perhaps I need to create a solution whereby I can not only help myself, but for the general public as well. In terms of sustainability, I think for all startups, I think it's very well known that startups usually fail within 3 years or 2 years or so, right? But how we sustain is by providing that balance. So we have corporate clients. Now, certain number of corporate clients can allow us to provide this free access to the community. And that's where we have only around 7,000 employees paying customers. However, the rest are all free public users, and they benefit from the app. So that's how we balance that social enterprise model, having that corporate and also providing that free access.
Yeah, if you look at social enterprise in Bangladesh, they started the Grameen Bank before, and where they help microfinance and grow up to be sustainable. So the question is, you're scaling out. How are you going to scale up? Because you're talking about moving to Europe, you need funding to scale up. So, and I have been involved in scaling out business. Most scaling out end up in failing the business because you grow too fast. How are you going to manage this?
Definitely true. And that's why we do a lot of pilot studies first. I think the key is that we do a pilot study. For Germany, we do pilot study with one German university, one German corporate company. When in Southeast Asia, also, it's all about pilot study. So from there, we collect the data, and then we scale. In terms of funding, I think we're lucky enough to be in this German program where we have social impact investors. So I think in Malaysia, I think Southeast Asia, not many social impact investors, but in the US, in Europe, there's quite a few.
Well, I think there's something WIEF can promote.
Definitely.
Because we need, it's not just a venture capital, but those with a social impact outcome. And are they not looking for IPO or some of this, or how do you exit this business?
Okay, I think it's more of not an exit. I know startups usually think about the end goal. Okay, I want to go listing, exit. I think for us, it's more about replicating the business and developing this and really creating it within the community, transforming Plus Vibes into a community app where it's accessible in the schools, in universities, in the workplace, so mental health is no longer a stigma. You actually have access.
Yeah, I think during COVID, we have a lot of this problem.
Definitely.
So I pass to Mr. Teranung. You're in the government. Maybe you can present about what is the Thailand government pushing for the digital transformation as a government.
Good, thank you very much. As Thailand is not a very big country, and we actually need to admit that we are not in the centers of digital transformation, 10 years before, right? So the Thai government realized that to be able to accelerate digital transformation of the countries, the government need to take leadership roles. So the government actually established 3 government agencies. The first one is we call digital government agencies, which look at digitizations of government services to the public. And the second one is the electronic transaction development agencies, who act as regulators for electronic transaction, creating standards for key infrastructures like digital signatures, digital credentials, and also how the electronic documents can be exchanged with trusted systems within the country. And the third one, which I'm the chairman of, is the digital economy promotion agencies. And in the DEPA, which is Digital Economy Promotion Agencies, we look at promoting and creating ecosystems. So our activities are actually focusing in 4 key areas. The first one is digital startups. We're helping digital startups, both Thai startups and also foreign startups that has establishment in Thailand, to support them to grow the business, right? To find their business partner, doing business matching, providing them with fundings, grant funds, investment funds, and also pushing them to be able to find the markets. Things like we work with the government procurement office to allow startups to be able to put on a bid And we already managed actually to have 7 startups winning the bid from the government agencies. So far, so we're very proud of that. And also, we're providing things like a cash coupon. So a company wanting to use startup solutions, they can actually access the cash coupon, which is a subsidy in a kind, to help the startups be able to sell their systems to those companies and testing their solutions and adapting their solutions to make a better product fit into the market. That's the digital startups side. Second one is about promoting the adoption of digital technologies in key industries, which we look at health tech, ed tech, agricultural, tourism, and also the fintech, the fintech areas, right? And we work with the industry associations to study how they're going to use the technologies and the potential of usage of technologies. And we try to bring those technologies to them. And also working on incentives so that they can adopt it further. If they're lacking people to implement the system, we're trying to reach out and find those people for examples, right? So it's about promoting the usage of digital in the countries to transform the businesses. And the third area is about building a richer ecosystems, right? And that is done through projects like smart cities, which is like an integration of various technologies to be used so that the public can benefit. Public in a certain location can benefit from having a smarter infrastructures, smarter governments, smarter services to the communities, right? And on the ecosystems, we also building what we call Thailand Digital Valley, right in the middle of the Eastern Economic Corridors, just very near the port, the seaport of Lam Chabang. We have a big piece of land there. So we plan to have 5 buildings. We have startups there. We have key manufacturing companies that are located around that areas to have their innovation labs. We're providing a test facilities for new technologies like 5Gs or application of 5Gs in the manufacturing and in the service industry, for examples. Because these are new technologies, you need proper testing in a proper setup environment. So we provide those testing facilities for both the solution providers and also the people who wants to adapt those technologies, right? And the fourth key area is actually addressing the most important part of digital transformation, which is the manpower. And we divided things into our effort into key areas like how can we help the existing workforce adapting themselves into the new digital eras. Areas like cobot, right? Working collaboratively with robots, which is a new skill actually. People when in the past they're doing all the assembly work or manufacturing work themselves, but now in the future they need to work together with robots. How can they learn to actually work with robots so that when the factory wants to start using robots, they can adapt themselves and be in the new workforce, in the new group of workforce who can work with robots, for examples. Or things like, how can we have factory workers start knowing about data analytics and how they use data analytics more effectively? Because that are the key in the futures. Service people, how can they use their apps to equip themselves with better knowledge so that they can perform better service to customers. So that is about equipping the existing workforce to adapt themselves. The second would be on how can we build a future workforce. We have things like how to attract foreign talents that has digital knowledge. Phuket is actually rated in many areas as #1 location for digital nomads right now, right? And our office in Phuket is working with those nomads on how to make sure that they can contribute to the developments of digital technology in Thailand more efficiently. And at the same time, how to attract more of them, because we realize that we are lacking key resources in digital. And also we work with schools. We have the coding program. It's called code.org, which actually equip even the primary students to start doing some basic coding, knowing how to do coding, right? And then we also have the university level or secondary education level kind of education for digital, right? And the third area is actually about creating digital literacy for the general public, the general citizens. How can they protect themselves from scams, from fraud, and also from issues like cybersecurity standpoints, right? What to do, what not to do, and also dealing with all the ethical stuff, all the non-ethical stuff that are actually in the ecosystem right now. Like we are working with the ministry to come up with what we call the ethical guideline for AI usage for corporates in Thailand, for example. And that is about protecting the general public from being attacked or being misused, abused by the digital technology. So those are the quick overview of what we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. I think most governments around the world have great ideas and aspiration, but they face many challenges like execution. Because most of the time, we have, making it happen is always a challenge in many parts of the world. So how do you overcome the execution challenge? Because from aspiration to making it happen, that's one challenge you face. Second is the resistance to change, because you are dealing with a lot of institutions who are brought up in the very legacy culture. So how do you drive the culture change among the institutions to really able to support some of their national strategic initiative in digitization?
Yeah, very good questions. Actually, we have been dealing with this for the last 5 years, and I would say it's very difficult. It's a very difficult job, and it's not. Thailand is not making progress in every front. I would say we're making good progress in only some fronts. My learning is that the first thing you need to look at the agency itself. It needs to be strong. So it needs to be led by the board has a direct responsibility to choose the right CEOs and the management teams. Because the right CEO with the right attitude, especially in terms of public services kind of attitude is very key, right? And also the board themselves need to be impartial, independent, progressive, and looking at the greater goods as their main objectives. In Thailand, we're quite fortunate because in the law, it says that the government only have 2 members of the board as an official, 2 government officials in the board. All others actually need to be independently chosen. For example, I'm from a private sector. Where I run companies, I am chairman of the board of several companies, and I can become a chairman of the board of the government agencies, for example. Second thing, I think the public-private partnership is very important, right? We don't do this thing alone. We do in partnership with the private sectors, with academic sectors, and also the social sectors. I mean, all those NGOs and all that need to be involved. And every major project, we involve those people together with the government officials that are related. I think that is key on pushing it forward.
Very to bring private sector as part of government you know, I mean, this is quite innovation, you know, like in Singapore, they bring a lot of private sector to be part of the government to run this.
Because private sector, they have money, they have power to actually pushing things forward.
Then they bring new culture into the government.
That's right.
To get things done.
That's right.
So, but sometimes you face problem. I take say, public procurement, you know. I've been working on this as part of I'm also a member of the Anti-Corruption Commission. You know, we sometimes trying to make public procurement as an instrument for innovation.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult. You've got many vested interests in public procurement. How do you support public procurement to really be the instrument for your fintech or your digital? How do you do that when you're touching some vested interest in this area?
Well, I think choosing the right partners is important, especially the pilot government offices that we choose. For example, we're quite fortunate that the revenue department is the head of the revenue department is very advanced, and he likes all these startups things, so we partner with him, actually doing a hackathon with startups and their top management people, and they come up with ideas and they start appreciating how startups can help solving their problems, and in the end it's easier, right? So you need a lot of communications and some pilots, but as I said, you need to choose the organization who has the right leadership first,
okay,
as a beginning, as a starting point. Once you get that, and then they themselves would start wanting more and more of that, because they can see the effectiveness of using startups.
Okay, and if you have people like Maria who wants to go and invest in Thailand to scale out, what do you provide to ASEAN companies which are willing to go to Thailand? What do you do with them? Do you provide incentive, funding?
Yeah, and it's probably going to take me 5 hours to explain all of those, but yes, we do have incentives. We want to attract startups, both from ASEAN and every part of the world, actually, to come and start operations in Thailand, because we realize that we don't have enough manpower, and having the foreign companies wanting to operate in Thailand is a quicker way in training up our people.
Thank you very much. Michelle, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Great pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon and share a few insights. I'm lucky enough in my day job to combine innovation and also sustainability for APAC. For those of you who don't know, Tata Consultancy Services is a large business process, infrastructure, strategy organization that helps some of the global leaders around the world with their digital transformations. So at Tata Consultancy Services, we believe that future fit, resilient businesses require both digital and sustainability at their core. And so if I take us back a little bit, just before COVID. So before COVID, we had digital technology in many places. We might have hailed a share car, we might have made a payment, we might have booked that next holiday. Before COVID, we knew we had big problems, and we knew that we couldn't work in isolation or in silos to solve them. But what we didn't see is that COVID would teach us that we're in this together, that we actually need to work collectively to solve some of these big problems and work on solutions together, like we saw in building vaccines and in stopping the acceleration of the spread of the virus. And we did that because we bought into the role that we individually all play. And when I say that, I mean as individuals, as corporates, as governments, as communities. And I think some of those key learnings, I hope some of those key learnings will stay with us as we move forward and really embrace sustainability as well. So those learnings are pretty key as we tackle some of the big climate changes and challenges that we had ahead of us. And the world is starting to realize that they can't achieve their 1.5 degree or less unless all of the world actually achieves that, and that includes the ASEAN nations. And so again, post-COVID now, digital is even more pervasive. It's become the new norm, and it's also intergenerational, whereas before it was a little bit more restricted to businesses and in the middle. And so on Saturday, Tio, my guide, who I think in Penang, he was probably about 68, he busily told me about his parking app and how that made things really easy for him so that he never got a fine. Debashika, a startup that I was talking to in Singapore, she deals with expert knowledge and getting it to the right place at the right time. And she was telling me about her staff that was spread across the region and how in their part-time or their downtime were delivering coding to the US. And then another startup that I was looking at, so Singapore's premier startup competition last month, we were looking at a lot of education-based startups that were bringing AI and metaverse into the learning field for 7 to 12-year-olds. So trying to really help accelerate and engage with young students. And then a couple of more months before that was a startup that Ed had launched. And that was around healthcare. And what he was doing was a really disruptive business model that engaged not-for-profits and the large corporates, but increased the accessibility of healthcare to the most vulnerable regions. And he was doing that across this region and also Africa. And so at TCS, we believe that it's time to accelerate digitization and look to innovative new business models that will help us both grow and achieve our ESG goals. So some people put sustainability in an or bucket. For us, it's definitely an and. And as a leader of global digital transformation across lots of different sectors, we're aiming to try and bring our capability to our customers, to our communities, to our employees, and many more. And so some of our efforts might include working with our customers to reduce their carbon footprint through bringing in intelligent energy solutions. It might be rebalancing their investment portfolio so that they can be ESG rateable. It might be working on your procurement from a sustainability risk, but also a Scope 3 tracing and trackability. And it might be on understanding how you're going to transition in this new energy environment and developing digital twins for heavy intensive industries. But we also work with farmers in India. How do we help them sell at the right time, grow the right product, put the right amount of water or the right amount of chemicals on? We also do a lot of social innovation work. So working with our customers such as Petronas here in Malaysia to develop a program that build startups to address some of the tough social challenges. And then we also work with governments to build skills. So in Singapore recently, during COVID, we looked to develop talent, but not the usual IT talent. We looked to mid-career, and we also looked to non-IT trained individuals to bring them into the organization. And then obviously the youth is key. And so if I just go to Philippines alone and some of our Go IT programs that we run, we've put around 1,800 students, so these are late school students. They've developed 280 apps themselves right off the bat. And so for us, engaging those ecosystems, both our customer base, the not-for-profit, our students and our employees, is a really important part of this future solution and digital transformation. And we think ASEAN's in a really unique position to both reimagine and to rethink the way that we do that.
Thank you, Michelle. I just want to ask you about ecosystem building. When you in your visit to various countries, and where does the ecosystem start? Do you build the ecosystem in the universities? How do you sequence it in terms of building the ecosystem? Where do you start?
Where do you start building your ecosystem? Funnily enough, we all have them. Actually, it's about mapping them. So if I think about sustainability, each of us don't exist as an island by ourselves in our companies or our government departments. So if you think about that initial layer 1 removed, layer 2 removed, and we think end to end, so whether that be in producing a service or in producing a good, right from the natural raw materials all the way through the process, then out the other side when you're dealing with the waste. And how do I take that waste, whether that be energy wastage, of which there's a good amount, and reuse that in my process, but how do I then take the waste of products which we used to throw away? We created that non-circular set of processes a long time ago. How do we take that waste and reintegrate it either in somebody else's process or in our own process? And the reason I use this is because that's an example of our sustainability processes as companies we need to buy into. But then the second example that I'd like to bring is probably one around something TCS runs in this region. We've run it for a couple of years, called Sustainathon. And what we do is we look to bring in young university students And they set up a problem-solving environment where they are trying to solve some big problems. So our first one that we did in Singapore was around food waste. This last year we did education, and we ran it in Singapore, Philippines, and Malaysia. And we've also run it in UK and Netherlands and Pune, and we're running it in South Africa next week. What that does is the companies come into that environment. So your first layer, you've already got your students in, you got your company, and the next layer is you bring in corporates with their business problem. They bring that into the environment, and then you bring in your not-for-profits and those government influencers, and also conduct organizations like Global Compact, and they help then flesh out that solution and help take it to a different level. And so with that ecosystem, we're trying to solve things together, but we're also teaching people about the value of different inputs at different environments. And then those startups then go on to create their own value.
Okay, thank you. On this, for example, this frontier, Michelle, this you are in the talent management also. You do a lot of capability building. But if you look at the frontier technology from blockchain to AI, machine learning, gene editing, and drone, and all these are emerging technology, how do you build those technology as part of the ecosystem? Do you work with a government agency, or you just go to university and build the thing?
Look, and I think it's a great question. Thank you for that. So TCS, you would, if you know TCS, we're a digital transformation company, but one of the key things that we are is an acquisition and talent building organization. We bring in the region of tens of thousands, and last year alone we brought in 100,000 people into the organization, which then all need to be trained and upskilled on a continual basis. And so training and development is a really important part of our environments. We do that through what we developed over the last couple of years called micro apps and micro learning slots. And that's trying to make it learning very accessible for all different types of users within the environment. And we developed something called a digital score, or a T-score, which talked about domain, which is key, but also technical. And so making that accessible is really important. Also bringing that into the demands that we talked about with GoIT and in some of our students, we look to make that accessible from a learning perspective as well. And then we work with government to try and build not just the traditional, so I work with startups, I also work with universities to help develop their curriculums, and we work with governments as well to help build in the right skill. It really needs that partnership to try and make it happen. The key though is it might be blockchain yesterday, it might be drones the day before, it's something else the next day. And so understanding that those days of learning and learning once or twice, actually learning needs to be a constant part. And so that's really one of the reasons we built up this approach to micro-learning, where you can do it when you're on the bus, you can do it when you're on the MRT, you can do it and have it accessible at any time.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Ashfaq, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Salamat and Hari, if I've pronounced it correctly. The good thing about having a good lunch is delicious, but the bad thing is that it influences us to take a nap. So I'm sorry that we are disturbing you at this point of the time, but I hope this lovely session will entertain you. Now, coming back to the topic on transforming the future, there's no doubt that we stand in the dawn of a very new, interesting era. Imagine your driving license becoming redundant or of no use because of smart cars that's coming up in the future. Imagine no need of hard cash like the 10 RM or the 20 RM or the 50 RM that you carry because of fintech and credit card. With uncertainty comes fear. That's natural human phenomena. But we shouldn't be fearing technology. We should be embracing it, but with more responsibility and consciousness. Technology today is the biggest bridge which enables us to connect beyond borders. Someone staying in Penang can be working for a company in US. Someone working in Bangladesh can be, staying in Bangladesh can be working for a company in Malaysia. Technology has enabled it. It's very hard to imagine nowadays a life without Grab or Google Map, for instance. So as we see that technology is no longer an option, it's slowly becoming a basic human right. We have to understand that we are not the only one transforming technology, but instead, technology is transforming us, the human, the way we behave, the way we live, the way we interact. However, non-inclusive digital solution, non-participatory digital solutions can actually become major problem and not the solution itself. Hence, what is very important is digital leadership. We talk a lot about transformation, but transformation is not possible unless or until you have wise leadership. So we have to understand that flawed or poor digital leadership can actually cause digital mutation, but not transformation. Hence, at the government of Bangladesh, we initially focused on one singular thing, and that is digital leadership within the government. So we trained the policymakers, the civil servants, and everyone associated with the digitization of the country into digital sensitivity, in inclusion, and in understanding the process of the digitization. Only after that was completed, and we had good digital leadership, we then focused on the whole of society approach, where we ensure that the transformation is not only for the selected few, is not only for the 10% who own 76% of the wealth, but actually for all the people, the last mile people, who also can have access to a format of the digital services that we are providing. In innovating the services, we have been able to innovate approximately 3,000 public services, and that has resulted us in saving 12 billion work days of the citizens and $16 billion by the citizens of Bangladesh saved as a measure of, as a means of renovating and restructuring our digital services. However, there's a lot more that can be done, and this model is also being followed and replicated globally as well, starting from developing countries like Sudan, Somalia, Philippines, and Maldives as well, piloted by the UNDP. As we have already found a very solid foundation of digital transformation, what we are doing now is looking for digital opportunities. There's massive digital opportunities that lies ahead. One of the good examples can be halal economy, which Malaysia is a pioneer. There's a research which says that the halal economy is expected to be $3.96 trillion by 2030, and a prediction of almost 3 billion Muslims by the year 2060. So there's a massive opportunity that waits to be unlocked. And there are other opportunities as we go into the metaverse and the AI or the fourth industrial revolution space. This is something that we are exploring, and at the very center, we want to do that with three things in focus. One is competency, as I mentioned about digital leadership. The second is connectivity, to ensure that all our citizens can actually have access to those services. And the third, perhaps the most important, is all of these things needs to be done with compassion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashfaq. Just a quick question. You know, you were talking about Bangladesh taking the whole of government approach in the digital leadership. But, you know, government are designed to crawl, not to run. So, you know, when you're talking about, they got bureaucracy, they got rules and regulation, they got parliamentary procedures, they got auditor general checking everything, what they do. How do you cope, you know, with because the digitization is about speed of execution, because while you talk, something is happening somewhere. How do you overcome that challenge in leading some of the government to really move hard? Do you overhaul the whole government, or you just work around them? Ashfaq.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a very interesting one, and that's the area we face the biggest challenge, because governments in its DNA is actually designed in such a way that it is supposed to be bureaucratic. That's why it's called bureaucrats, right? So what we have done is basically we have created a benchmark called TCV, time, cost, and visits. Across all ministries and all civil servants, we have given them this balanced scorecard where we mentioned that try and innovate your services depending on whatever ministry you are, try and innovate your services in such a way that it reduces cost, it reduces visits, and it reduces time. T for time, C for cost, WIEF of visits of the citizen. Before, if that service used to take 10 days, now it needs to be done in 5 days. Before it was, say, maybe costing $20, now it needs to be $10. Before it needed 5 visits, maybe now you can probably do it online from your home. And that TCV model was actually implemented all across the government, and they were given funds as well as appreciation of trying to achieve the best TCV. And what we have seen is that the government civil servants are now actually competing with, the ministries are competing with one another to actually have a better TCV score in terms of time, cost, and visit. And that's exactly the model that we have championed. And it's, as I mentioned, that it's being modeled, that's being followed elsewhere. And I'm sure that this model can be also brought into places like Malaysia as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I just want to open a question from the floor at this moment. Any question from, yes, please. Mike, please.
Hi, thank you, Dato'. My name is Nani. I'm from the American Malaysian Chamber of Commerce. My question over here is talking about the supply chain resilience, how to balance the need for cybersecurity in the digital transformation, and also what are the measures in place or taken to overcome the cybersecurity issues?
Is it about supply chain question?
Yeah, it's linked together to talk about the whole ecosystem as well.
Okay, anyone to take this question? Yes, Michelle, anyone?
Yeah, I can. So supply chain balancing with
Yes.
cybersecurity. I'm not sure I'm going to go on the cybersecurity. You might need to pick that one up. But what I will say is if I go, supply chains, as we know, significantly disrupted. The disruption that's happening now is not just from an economic perspective and availability perspective. It's actually going to be increasing from an ESG perspective as well. So with Europe, some of their changes that they're putting out on legislating in terms of their extended supply chains are starting to impact on ASEAN markets and APAC markets overall. And so some of that is being helped by the large corporates who need to actually gather supply chain information, carbon-related information, natural resource information, modern slavery type information, so that they can report clearly enough to their stakeholders as well, whether that be legislative or their investors and so on. And so some of those changes are starting to come through in large corporates. I mentioned before about the product and where you're getting from and where you're giving it to. That's changing a lot, and we're starting to see that coming through, and it will need to only increase rather than decrease. And so you kind of go, can a medium-sized business cope with it? Yes. Can a very small business? No, but that's where actually some of the digital enablement will be coming from the large corporates to help them. From a cyber perspective, I think there's obviously, it's one of the major problems that organizations need to address, and we see things, I'll say, being challenged every day. I'm not sure that's a very purpose-led way to lead your business, but let me put that one to one side, where you're trying to break someone's systems.
Yes, yes, okay. You want to say something?
Sure. I'd like to add to Michelle and Dato that I think how we can handle cybersecurity is by also how +5s handles it, is by having 2 separate platforms. So for us, mental health is a very important and sensitive issue, of which when we're dealing with employees of banks, what happens if their data, their information, their mental health issues get leaked? So what we do is you can have 2 different softwares to collect and keep these data. I think there's high risk when you rely on one software. So what we do is that you can have 2 different types of data, and then you code. You tend to code the employees, the name of the companies, the different types of data, and that coding itself is internal. But the problem lies when you outsource and you only have one software, one platform that holds all of this data. So when it leaks, you practically have access to everything. So I think moving forward for any company, whether you want to digitalize or whether it's a startup, it's to have different softwares keeping different data in different platforms. So if it gets leaked, they wouldn't entirely be able to have access to that because it's all coded.
Yeah, I mean, you're having a very sensitive data, if somebody go through and if my name appear in them,
Yeah. Suddenly having mental health issues, anxiety, depression, people like, I know that, see?
yeah, he got mental health problem.
Right.
I wouldn't be around here speaking. They won't invite me anymore. So how do you keep those data, which is very, very important? And data, you can also monetize the data later on. You know.
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's your business model actually. So any other question from the floor? Yes, please. I got 2 questions there.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Anas Tulip, and I'm a consultant to NAMA Foundation. We're a funding organization specialized in CSO development, youth development, and education as well. My question is to Michelle, definitely. We've recently signed a contract with IDB. For the next 5 years, we'll be focusing a lot on entrepreneurship, funding entrepreneurs and startups. So we'd like to know if your organization, you've had a lot of startups, sponsored a lot of startups, as I understood from your speech. Do you have a follow-up mechanism and capacity building for the startups for maybe like a few years of when they start or not? We would love to know that, and I would love to meet you later also to see how we can collaborate. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone? Tiranun, you want to? Anyone on the panels can answer this?
Okay.
Yeah.
So look, I think the startup world has kind of gone crazy, right? We have startups and accelerators and many different things. I think the real challenge for startups, and then I'll go back to our programs that we run, is really about that scale up, is really about enterprise ready. So we have a lot of the machinery starting, and we've got it in many countries, whether it be governments, academic environments, startups of their own rights hooked to VCs. There's so many. The challenge for a large corporate who needs the ideas, needs the breakout, needs that group who can challenge some of the thinking, is that it's made for a small scale and it's not made for an enterprise-wide. And I guess that's where one of the programs that we run as TCS is called our Co-Innovation Network, or COIN, where we bring academics and VCs and startups together to try and accelerate that journey through to an enterprise-ready system and help them on their journey. So it's a pretty competitive environment to get into. They need to be, certainly have developed some revenue, have gone through, obviously their own capital raises, and have viable products in place. And so there's an application process that happens that we bring together. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them, both coach them, but also introduce them on the right basis into our global set of customers. And so that's really the program that we run. It builds in then different support across different networks. But we also run then startups and incubations within our own environment. So we've just finished an internal incubation boot camp that we ran for 16 weeks in TCS, trying to come up with the best new ideas for ourselves. And 6 of those 12 that were chosen to go through the program were sustainability related. And that was everything from green IT, through to bioremediation of industrial waste, through to plastics marketplaces, all of them centric on digital solutions. And that's why I think I've got one of the most exciting jobs of bringing sustainability related outcomes and SDG and ESG focused work and innovation together. Hopefully that gives you a short idea.
Okay, thank you. Another question there? Yeah, please.
Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. My name is Mazuki. My questions, because I'm running a company on the transportation logistic industry. So I have an idea currently to create a startup whereby, like what I mentioned here, digital transformation for the logistic industry, transportation, the implementation is at the blue collar driver. So I'm searching around. The challenges I'm asking here, because a lot of platform on the digital is already there, from the human resource, procurement, operating, repair, maintenance. So the questions which is, if let's say you have come across experience, whereby we create a platform from the top, but the implementation is from the bottom. So there is a big gap bridge between the implementation from the bottom to the top. Is there a platform that whereby start the digital transformation from the bottom to the top? Means that we create a operating system and combine with the ERP under one platform. So I already have the idea in my mind. I already write out, but I didn't know how to start. Because the biggest challenge is come back to the implementation of the change driver to use that platform.
Yeah. I mean, this is a common problem for everyone going to do this. But anyway, anyone want to,
I have some experience around that. I would say if you search for a system now, you may find one. But I would say that the transformation side would not happen in your organizations because it's going to be a one-time big implementation of technologies. But your company would not get the so-called digital transformations. Because digital transformation for me is both top-down and bottom-up. And it is more cultural than technology, mindset and cultural than the technologies. So if you want to really go through transformations, not just automations of your current processes, I would say you need to go through the whole transformation route, which is creating the right mindset in your organization, involving both the people who are working in the field and the management layers to start looking at things differently, to start learning things like the lean startups, design thinking, customer empathy, and the new way of working, which is agile implementations, small experiment on many things. Then you will get the stickiness of transformation. Yeah. And you may end up with an entirely different technology platform than what you imagine. But the key benefit is that then you can continue having those teams working for you, bringing in new things from a more sustainable perspective. That's my view.
Okay. You want to say something? Yeah, Maria.
I think I agree with Teranun, but also that when you go from top-down approach, the thing is employees often feel forced to use the mobile application or those systems. Another way that you can do is provide benefits or rewards for them to use this digital transformation. So for example, a mobile application for logistics, right? Encouraging the employees to use it. If you do, these are the certain benefits. These are the certain points that you can collect in order to reward. You know, so it kind of gamifies. With digital transformation, I do believe you have to gamify it a bit in order for people to feel motivated in order to use it. Because when they cannot see a leaderboard, when they cannot see the points, the growth, then it'll be like, why? I cannot see progress. So I think in anything, when it comes to progress, when you create that system where people can see how they are improving, how it's affecting the company, then yes, it might be easier, rather than just telling them, we need to use this because we need to change, right?
Yeah. Okay, you know, even, I mean, in the bank, we have to do a big innovation lab and customer experience center. It's a long process to do this. Even a bank is a legacy institution. So we need to close this. First of all, I just want to take 1 minute because one of the part of this conference is on the Islamic digital economy. So I'm coordinating now the Islamic digital economy for EPU. So we just have last few days, we finished the design thinking workshop and looking at the, to lift one of the government idea was the intra-trade that we want to get the SMEs like Yon example on the global e-commerce platform so that, you know, SME can sell their product and services to the 1.8 billion Islamic market. So that is the ideal because, you know, I think the IDB, I was in IDB for a while before, where we were trying to intra-OIC country trade, intra-ASEAN trade, but the trade pattern will have to go on a global platform, and that requires certification, so and harmonize that. And then we look at fintech, halal, we looked at travel and also lifestyle, and also education services. They are all going on a global platform. That means your market is unlimited. You know, looking at Indonesia, 300 million market. So the Islamic economics is a topic by itself that we don't have time to discuss this, but it requires another one day to discuss on Islamic economics. So I'd like to thank all my panel members, you know, and give them a round of applause. And thank you. And I hope this session is a fruitful, a good takeaway for all of you. Thank you.